Good evening, Drew.
I'm a sleepy boy.
I was going to say what you got going on over there.
Well,
sounds
no, it's just been a really long week. I've had to work a little bit later to. Well, I've been having to work later. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And as a result of that, I've been having to get up earlier to do my workouts at like 5 a.m. So my schedule's just all sort of thrown off. And then traditionally Thursday is a rest day for me.
Okay.
So today would have been a rest day, but I got up early today for reasons we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah. Well.
You know what? Let's just talk about that right now. So today was a special day.
Yeah, today was a special day.
Uh-huh.
So we talked a little bit about this last week when we talked about your PS5 pre-order, but today was the day that the NVIDIA 3090s, which is the new sort of flagship card from NVIDIA, was supposed to launch. And we talked a little bit about this last week about how, supplies are really tight and it's really hard to get one, and places sold out really quick, and people were mad at NVIDIA for not making enough, and people actually wrote bot scripts to buy the video cards to make sure they got one. So,
right.
For the online retailers' credit, they sort of took some lessons learned from last week's launch and decided to change things up a little bit for today. So they clearly announced, look, at 6 a.m. Pacific time, that's when these new 3090s are going to go on sale. Now, I didn't go out of my way to try to get a 3080 for two reasons. One, I knew it was going to be really hard. And two, I was sort of holding out for the 3090 anyway.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yes. So after the 3080 launched last week, I sort of sat on the sidelines and I read the reviews, and I was really impressed. And NVIDIA did a good job with this generation of hardware. And I was talking to a buddy of mine, a couple friends of mine actually, a guy I work with, and then friend of the show, Alex Allen. I don't know if he's a friend of the show or not. I'm just going to call him a friend of the show. And he's also in the market for new video cards. So my friend has a lot of sort of. The friend I work with has some inside contacts with suppliers and vendors and things like that. Yeah. So we were sort of talking through options, and let's just say he's pretty considerably well off. So his attitude towards a lot of hardware launches is, I'm just going to buy a bunch of things, and whatever one here gets here first, I'll keep and I'll return the rest.
It must be nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. But that is one way to do it.
That is one way to do it.
Okay.
And to be clear, there's a lot of people who, myself included, who could do that if you view credit as not real money. But I view it as real money, and I don't want to do that. So anyway, he had been scouring the internet and suppliers for a while, and last week he said, hey, listen, I got a hotline on some 3090s that I can pre-order, and places weren't doing pre-orders, and I didn't ask any questions. I was just like, he's like, I was able to get two. And I was like, well, I don't know if they're shipping at the same time or how this is going to work. But listen, if you get two, I'll take one off your hands for cost. And he's like, deal.
Okay.
Okay. They still, so I'm just going to cut right to the chase. Those haven't shipped yet. There's no ETA on when those will ship. I don't know how those pre-orders were handled. I don't know how many people pre-ordered them. And at this particular juncture, I don't know if they ever will. But supposedly this gentleman has some pre-orders in place to deal with these things eventually. But he and I were talking, and Micro Center did a launch of the 3080 last week where people started lining up at midnight for the launch.
Okay.
So earlier this week, I was just sort of thinking it over, and I'm like, I'm not going to stand outside at Micro Center at midnight, but I could potentially go to Micro Center at like 3 a.m. if there's no line. So I talked to my friend about this, and I'm like, well, what do you say we go to Micro Center this morning? We'll drive over there at like 3 or 4 a.m. If there's a line, you know what? Hey, we tried, and we'll get coffee or breakfast, and then we'll go home. But if there's like one or two people out there, hey, we'll hop in line and we'll hang out for a couple hours and wait till the store opens and grab one. Like, my time isn't worth 10 hours waiting in line for this thing, but it might be worth 5 or 6 hours waiting in line, if that makes any sense.
It makes it makes enough sense.
Right. And Mother Nature cooperated with us here too, because last night wasn't nearly as cold as the previous nights. It was actually pretty temperate out last night, recording this on a Thursday per normal. So he and I were talking, and he was like, I haven't been sleeping that great anyway, so I'm going to get up a little bit earlier than 3, and I'll go over there, and I'll tell you what's happening. So I set my alarm for 3.
That's nice.
He's a night owl. He drove over there. So my alarm went off at 3, and I woke up to a text from him that he sent me a text at like 2:30 in the morning. And there was already a sign out at Micro Center saying they were sold out.
Wow.
So apparently what had happened was there were people lined up last night at midnight, and the Micro Center staff basically sold the cards at midnight to the people that were already standing out there.
Okay, got it.
Now, I could be mad about that because that's not how they did it for the 3080 launch. But on the other hand, I'm like, you know what? Micro Center, had I been one of the people in line at midnight, I would have appreciated it a lot more. So I'm not mad about it, if that makes sense.
Especially if they know they only have, a limited amount. Like, these people that are in line, might as well just sell them and be done. Everybody can go home.
Everybody can go home, and we're sold out, and that's that. So I'm not mad about it. So I went back to bed because I was like, there's no sense driving over there if they're sold out. So I went back to bed. I got up, at my normal time around 7 o'clock this morning, made my coffee, got online, did email, did work, computering. And as the mythical 9 a.m., 6 a.m. Pacific time thing ticked away, I was like, you know what? I'm going to open a couple browser tabs. I'll hit refresh a few times. If I could snag one, I snag one. I didn't snag one. So, a little bit of a cluster, right? Websites became unresponsive because web programming is hard. And I basically tried 4 avenues. I tried the official NVIDIA website, because that's the only place you can get one of the founders editions of the cards. And at one point, I was on their UK site, even though I was clearly on the US site. So they were having some problems. Okay, I've been around the block a few times. I know load balancers. Sometimes they bounce you to some weird places. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But I would have gladly paid British bucks for one of those and done the conversion and had it shipped overseas. I don't care.
Right.
But suffice to say, I made it as far as getting one in my cart on the NVIDIA site, but when I would click checkout, nothing happened. And by the time I refreshed my browser, everything was gone.
It was gone.
Yep. I also tried Newegg, but I've never had good luck ordering anything from Newegg. However their website gremlins work, I never even saw anything in stock. Everything was just auto-notify. So if they were available, it was for a very brief period of time, and they got sold. Now, EVGA, who makes really good editions of video cards, which the card I have in my computer right now is an EVGA, they also started selling them early this morning, but only to, they call them their elite members, which kind of works like an affiliate program type thing. My friend that I work with is a member, and so is friend of the show, Alex Allen. But their website fell over really hard. Like, they were able to actually get them in their carts and almost pay for them, but everything fell apart, and they didn't get one. So, like all people who are unhappy with NVIDIA, the only place to really kind of vent the frustration or revel in the misery of others is Reddit. So I went over to the NVIDIA subreddit, sort of read the launch day threads. Everybody was having the same problems. I saw a lot of people saying, why is this trying to charge me £1 for this card? So I wasn't the only one.
Because computers are awful.
Because computers are hard. And yeah, a lot of people didn't get them. And there's also sort of some speculation that they went on sale a half hour before they were supposed to, but I haven't seen any evidence of that. So, look, long story short, I didn't get one. I still want to upgrade. The reviews of the 3090s are starting to drop, and they're not great.
Really?
Yeah, so everybody acknowledges the fact that they are the most powerful graphics card you can sort of get right now for gaming. but they should not be marketed as gaming cards. The games that are out today can't take full advantage of them. Okay. NVIDIA is marketing this whole 8K gaming thing, and that's just not feasible. Like, even with an 8K display, you're going to get a console-like or worse experience, which is a PC gamer's way of saying, we're better than you.
I get it. A lot of my games are 30 frames a second. I get it.
Yeah.
It's fine. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, and compared to the 3080, even with a slight overclock, you're paying over 100% price tag over the 3080 for anywhere, depending on the game or the benchmark, anywhere from 4 to 12% improvement. So, over 100% of the cost for a 12% gain.
That's disappointing.
It is, and part of me wants the best. Part of me wants the best thing in my computer. I don't know. Put it this way. If I'm strolling through the wonderful aisles of Micro Center and there's a 3080 and a 3090 on the shelf, I'm going to have a hard decision to make. But if I walk into Micro Center and the only thing that's available is a 3090, I'm going to buy the 3090, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah. It does. Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, that's me. I've just been working really hard, man. It's becoming apparent to me that working from home is kind of a curse. I mean, granted, I worked from home even before gestures and everything, but man, it's just really hard for me to turn off work sometimes.
Yeah,
especially when you work in a role where many of your coworkers are in other time zones that are behind you, and many people you work for are in those time zones as well.
Yeah, the time zone thing, I imagine, would be just makes everything worse.
It's making it very difficult, and I'm just tired all the time. I've just been working a lot.
Well,
I've been working a
lot. You
lot.
should work less. I mean, that's really the only solution to the problem. But it is tough. Like I've been making a really conscious effort that once I'm done with work, I'm done with work for the day. I mean, I usually try to. By the time that I kind of decide that I'm going to start making dinner, I'm done. Capital, DONE, done. I don't try to go back unless something's on fire. So, and that's. I mean, I'm just afraid because back when I was a much younger Paul, I didn't work from home, but when I was living and working in Texas, my apartment was literally right across the street from my office, like a 45-second walk. And in that time, it was very hard for me to separate work from home, and I worked entirely too much, and I got really burnt out, and it was a really bad time in my life. So I try not to do that, but like IT has crunch. Like it's sometimes, and for those of you who aren't in IT, first of all, thank you so much for listening to all of this. And second of all, crunch is basically a period where deadlines are looming. There's a lot of work to be done. People just suck it up and work too much. And I mean, I'm not afraid of crunch. I don't like it, but when it happens, I definitely can do it. But yeah, it's something I actively work on. It's just don't work too much. It's you got all the other parts of life are so much better than work. Do those.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah. And the first year at this new job was a lot of learning and sort of not necessarily learning technology, but learning how kind of everything works. And I was just starting to get things figured out. And then we had a bunch of changes, and now I need to figure a whole bunch of things out again. And yeah, it's been a rough couple months, man. And we're going to get into the season here where we're going to start having time off for Thanksgiving and time off for Christmas. And, I'll have a lot more downtime probably closer to that time of the year. Yeah, so I just have a lot going on. There's a lot of little things. Like the big thing for me is right now a lot of my work is very, very bite-sized, but I just have a lot of it. It's like the whole 100 duck-sized horses type thing. I don't have one big project to spend my time on. I just have a bunch of little tiny projects to spend my time on.
You have lots of little duck-sized horses.
Yeah. So, hey, I'm going to stop complaining.
Okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
I'm just looking forward to the weekend. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I actually have Friday off, so I'm just gonna sit around and do absolutely nothing.
Well, you're not going to do nothing. I know what you're going to be doing.
Well, okay. So, I mean, I got two big things coming up on tomorrow. I've got another virtual concert, and yeah, and I'm actually really excited for this one.
Wait. You have a virtual concert tomorrow?
Yes, at 4:00. It starts at 4.
Oh, okay. All right.
It starts at 4, which is why my other thing starts at 8. So 8:00 tomorrow is our I'm going to say our D&D campaign's session 0. So, But before we get into that, I gave you some homework, and it looks like you did it.
I did. We're gonna talk more about the D&D thing because I have questions.
Okay.
And I figured we can hash those things out live on the air because that'll be
Let's do it.
Maybe exciting for us.
Okay.
All right. Last episode, you instructed me to watch Into the Spiderverse.
I sure did.
And I loved it.
Yes. It's a spectacular movie, isn't it?
It is. I my knowledge of Spider-Man only extended so far as boy gets bit by spider, boy becomes Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. And this is a take, like you said, on a lot of the Spider-Man movies.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I really liked Parallel Universe Spider-Man more than I probably should have.
Yes.
So, if you have Netflix, you should definitely watch Into the Spider-Verse. It is an animated movie. It is a superhero movie, and I know that's not everybody's cup of tea. But it's just really well done. It's really funny. The characters are really good, and I got to figure out who Miles Morales is. I guess he's now the Spider-Man.
Yeah, it depends on what universe you're in, but yeah, I think Into the Spider-Verse is a good movie and a great superhero movie. Like that's because superhero movies still have all those tropes, the hero's journey, but it's done really well, and it's kind of tongue in cheek with the fact that there's been so many different Spider-Man franchise and reboots, and it's like
right
here we go, another Spider-Man movie, and
yep.
I think the way they handled that was really clever.
Yeah, I very, very much enjoyed that movie. And like I said, I'm like the worst kind of superhero follower that's out there. But I followed it. I sort of understood what was going on.
And you're right. Sweatpants Spider-Man, as I like to call him, was it's just absolutely one of the best. Yeah.
Yeah. Just very well written. Yeah. Very well written thing. And I'm probably going to watch it again. Now, here, okay, yeah, so let's dive in a little bit. And again, I'm not trying to spoil anything, but Miles Morales, who becomes the new Spider-Man for reasons, he apparently has powers that normal Spider-Man doesn't have.
That is true.
Okay. I don't know how I felt about that.
Yeah, it's just that's just how it worked. He got bit by a different spider, and like the Spider-Verse is a real thing in the comics, and like all different worlds, and like that's always kind of existed, and all the Spider-Men kind of have different powers and abilities, and it's just they gave Miles Morales like the cool powers.
Yeah, I'll say.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's comic books. You can't have
as I'm learning.
I mean, like so it's comic books suffer from the problem where essentially they have an infinite budget, right? Like nothing's going to stop them from like blowing up a city or having huge special effects. It's just art. So comic books are constantly having to one up the last things. Like, oh, this is the biggest event ever. And then 4 years later, this is the biggest event ever.
Right. It's a form of brinksmanship that it's kind of the reason I sort of got a little tuned out on like the Avengers, because it just seemed like how much more could we do here? And I'll be honest, I still haven't seen Endgame. I still haven't watched that.
That's also a good movie, but I mean, you're not. I mean, I like all the Marvel movies, and I own them all, and I rewatch them, and I have my favorites and ones that I don't like as much. But yeah, I mean, you're not missing anything. I mean, it's just a big spectacle. But
yeah.
Oh, but I'm glad you enjoyed Into the Spider-Verse. I think it's a really good movie, and
yeah, it officially gets my recommendation to watch it.
Good.
And like Miles is just a really lovable character too.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yep. He's just a kid, an awkward teenager trying to get through.
Now, I do have one sort of comic booky type question. We're not going to talk about a lot of comic books.
Okay,
We've been talking about a lot of comic books, and I haven't read any new ones, so I don't have anything to talk about, which is part of the reason I don't want to talk. But Into the Spider-Verse, there is a particular villain that works for Kingpin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that a character that exists? I'm assuming it exists in the Spider-Man universe, right?
Yes.
What was his name? I already forget.
Oh crap! Prowler? Prowler. Yes, I was right. Prowler. Okay. Got it in one. Woo!
Okay. Yep. Now, yes. Prowler. He has a very interesting part in Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes, he does.
Now, how true to the comic book material is that particular relationship?
That's a good question. I don't know.
All right. Because when I watch things like this, I'm of two minds, right? Like, I want to watch the movie and enjoy it, but then I have to take a critical eye to things and think, that guy seems important. I bet you he's in a lot of the Spider-Man things. And then in this particular movie, there's not a twist, but an interesting thing that happens with him, and I don't know if that sticks to canon. I don't
know. I've never really. I mean, I haven't read a lot of Marvel comics outside of some of the big stories, like Civil War and the Infinity War and stuff like that. So I don't have enough, deep knowledge. But and I don't think it really matters. It was the story they wanted to tell for this.
And then all the weird alternate Spider-Mans, I don't know how true some of those were. Like the Noir one, I kind of could see, but some of the other ones, I'm just
yeah, I don't know. Like Spider-Gwen is, I've read some of her comics. And
she was great.
Yeah, she was great.
She was great.
Apparently, hold on, quick look on Spider Noir. Yes, first Spider Noir had a run in 2009. Spider-Man Noir. So there you go.
Okay. All right. Enough of that.
Enough.
I want to turn things over to you for a little while because, as you mentioned, tomorrow is a big day for you. You have a concert at 4, and then you are officially launching your new D&D campaign that I'm proud to be a part of.
Woo!
There's a couple things that I think we want to talk about here. The first is, well, I'll let you tackle it because it's a really interesting thing that I'm glad that you're doing. I think everybody should do this. I think if you're the type of nerd that listens to this next segment and thinks that this is not a good thing, you're just not a person I want to ever hang out with. Number one, and you're banned from the show. You're banned from listening to our show if you don't think this is a good idea. And then once you get through that topic, I have some things I need to discuss with you.
Okay.
All right, so take it away.
All right. So the topic is really tabletop RPG safety. And back when I was a kid, right, with my group of friends and even in college, right, there was no one gave two craps about if you had things that triggered you at the gaming table, right? It really depended on your group of friends. Some of them like to get, really kind of gory with descriptions of, a big part of tabletop RPGs is combat, let's be honest. And some of them like to get really gory. Some of them like to get, not to get too graphic, but, perverse. And, we were all among friends and it was just fine. But now I'm older and, I'm more conscious of people's feelings and experiences. And I remember the event, and I could be remembering this wrong, but I'm going to tell the story like I'm really confident with my memories. The first time this really kind of hit me, and it was during Beyond the Board, our wonderful game store, had been open for maybe, 6 months. It was right in the middle of back when I used to play like a lot of Shadowrun. They had this organized play thing called Shadowrun Missions. And basically what it was is, they would be events at your local game store. You could sign up for a time and you'd go in and you'd play a game and with people you've never met before. And I did a few of those until I got really bored. But I remember, I think it was the last one I ever did. And we're sitting at a table and we're going through stuff. And, there was different players with different levels of engagement. Some of them were like really quiet and kind of, very shy and closed and had to really kind of be, drug out of their shell. And some were a lot more vibrant. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was this one lady and she was really, really, really into it. And I think there was a scene where like there was, I can't remember if like they were, somehow there was alluded to that there were these kids that were orphans and their parents had recently deceased. And she got real quiet. Like she just got really, really quiet during that scene. And then about like 10 minutes later, she just got up and left. And her girlfriend was basically like, yeah, like, sorry, like this is something that just really bothers her. Like, I'll go out and talk to her. And I don't think she ended up coming back to the table. We just kind of finished the game. And I kind of had that epiphany of like, wow, like there are things in people's, like, you don't know what's going on in anyone's life to know, like, and like a tabletop RPG can go anywhere, right? Like you're really only bounded by your imaginations. So that was kind of the first thing that happened to me that made me start thinking about like safety. And I've been taking it seriously on and off for a while. In like our last Strahd game, I kind of knew it was going to be in the game, so I wasn't really worried about it. But like in stuff where like I'm going to be creating the content and it's going to be a lot more free form and a lot more like, improv based instead of just, me working out of a book. It's been something I've started to take more and more seriously. And I've been trying different things. And for this particular game, I've come across basically two big things that I'm going to give a try. So I did a lot of research. I'm going to put a link to this great Gnome Stew article. If you don't know Gnome Stew, they just talk about tabletop RPGs from a game master perspective. It's an article about why safety tools are important to me. It's a good read. You should think about it. He talks about why he uses different tools depending on the context. Tools he uses at a convention when he's all around strangers versus tools that he uses with his friends. So I'm going to be using two different tools this time. The first one is the digital RPG consent checklist. And it's a Google form. And I asked all of the players to take it. And essentially it's just a list of things that could possibly be triggers, like, hey, how do you feel about bugs, insects, spiders, even, more intense things like, torture, things like rape, child abuse of animals, things like that, right? I'm not saying like that's going to be the focus of the game, but those are things that could possibly come up either from myself or from another player. And I asked everybody to take this, and essentially you rated everything from like green, like, yep, I have no problem with this in the game, to like red, like, no, I don't want to have it at all. I asked all my players to take it. Drew, you took it. I took it myself. So I spent some time going through all of those results. And the outcome for that for me is I turned them into basically, there's this concept in RPGs called lines and veils. And what it is like, if something is a line, it has no place in the game. It does not exist. The NPCs won't do it. The PCs won't do it. I won't do it. You won't do it. It just won't happen. And those are the kind of things where like if someone, you don't know if someone has a phobia of clowns or spiders or, bunnies, right? Like, so if someone said red to one of those, it became a line. And then I have a list of veils, things that can exist in the game, but we're not going to go into a lot of detail about that, right? So, if you're not super comfortable with, heck, we'll even pick spiders, right? Say like, hey, spiders are okay, but I don't want to go into a lot of detail, right? So a spider might exist in the game, but I'm not going to describe the multiple eyes and the hairs on the legs and the, the drool coming off of its mandibles, right? It's going to be, hey, there's a spider. Or it could be something a little bit more, more socially, like, hey, maybe slavery would be a veil. So slavery might be something that happens like off screen, but it's not something that's, we're going to go into a lot of detail. So you took the survey, Drew. What did you think?
I thought it was exceptionally thorough.
Mm-hmm.
And, in all the kind of RPG games that I have played, both as a player and both as a host, I never really put a ton of emphasis on, I guess, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, on divisive things, right?
Yeah.
Now, granted, I really, truly have only hosted, like, Shadowrun games, and if I have to say that there's one particular part of Shadowrun that can be the most unnerving, it's the racism. Because the nature of how that world is, the different races of meta-humans, like, racism is sort of not an accepted thing in the game, but it's always there. There are certain areas of the world that are more racist than others. There are certain meta-human races that, frankly, have better advantages than other ones. And I think that is by design. I think it calls attention to things in our real world that we need to be cognizant of.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I've never had to deal with anything like that. Now, I will say that with the exception of the last campaign I hosted, I had always played tabletop RPGs that people that look like me. Straight white males, right? Like I never played in a game that had, any of my gay friends in it. I've only played in one campaign where we had a female player one time. And I found it really hard as a GM to not take that into account for all the wrong reasons, because it was harder for me to write storylines because
you didn't want to come off sexist in your storyline.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want it, but in doing so, you kind of accidentally come off as sexist in your storylines.
Yes, yeah.
Because you can try too hard. Let's just put it that way.
Yep. You can.
Yep.
And like sometimes, like, I mean, going back to like racism in Shadowrun, like that could be something that you choose to explore, right? Like, if you're comfortable with it and it's something you want to go into, I think a tabletop RPG is a nice, safe way to start, maybe exploring that stuff safely. Like, but not everybody. Yeah.
Like, I'll give you a perfect for instance. When people play Shadowrun, they usually play one of three races: elf, human, or troll. Right. If you're an elf or a human, you're pretty much fine because elves are the most racist. Humans are they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And trolls are badass enough that you don't want to insult one to its face, right?
Right.
But if you're a dwarf or especially an orc, man, you got it rough.
Orcs
are
my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, because dwarves have their own like special rules around clothing they can wear and weapons they can use, right? So it's like if you kill a badass enemy, you can't even take their gun. Like it's you're just kind of okay, whatever.
It's not modified for me.
No, it's not modified for dwarves. You're constantly at a 2d6 disadvantage, or whatever that rule is. And if you're an orc, my goodness, you have nothing. You have nothing. You are traditionally part of the poorest caste system. You've nothing. So, in a lot of my campaigns, that's typically what people play are elves, trolls, and trolls and humans, right? No one really plays a dwarf. I mean, and the other thing is too is the only reason you're really going to play a dwarf is to play a rigger or a pilot, which both of those slow down the game immensely. So
true. Yes, very true.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is too is like I haven't run a campaign with any of my black friends or Asian friends either. So it's like I that lack of diversity hurts me in some ways because I haven't had to tackle some of those things.
Yeah, you're very true. And like even like your straight white male friends, like you don't like they may. Especially the stuff that's really traumatic. That's exactly the stuff they're not going to tell you about, right? Like, you don't know what happened to them as a kid. So it's just, kind of having that out there, like, and I made it completely anonymous. Like, I didn't even look at I didn't look at individual like survey results. I just looked at it at an aggregate because honestly, I don't care. I don't need to know. Like, I don't need to know individually. Like, okay, yep, Drew, he has a problem with this. I just know that somebody has a problem with this, and it's not going to be in our game.
Right.
Which leads me to the second safety tool, and this is one I've used before, and it's one of those things where, like, I've never had to use it because the fact that it's there kind of makes everyone just aware of things, and that's the X card. Literally what it is if you're in a face-to-face game, you take out some index cards and you write an X on them and you put them all over the table. And generally the rule is like, hey, if something's happened in the game and you're not okay with it, just touch the X card. And that means we stop. There's no talking about it. There's no like, hey, what bothers you? We just kind of rewind time, and whatever that thing that just happened is not going to happen again. It's a really good way. You just kind of have that safety net of saying like, hey, if something's uncomfortable, you just like, oh, I don't like this. And then you just touch it and then it's gone. So we're going to be using kind of a digital version of that because, hey, we can't be in the same room. But it's one of those tools that like, I don't think I've used it in multiple of my in-person games in the past. It's worked really well. And it's one of those things like you will hear the speech about the X card tomorrow. And honestly, it's one of those things where the discussion about the X card is probably more important than the X card itself. Saying like I will use it to say like, hey, if something comes up that's a line in our game, I'll touch it. Like, it's like, nope, not allowed.
Yep. Now, okay, so the flip side of this though, is the gaming group that I played with, we had been playing games for the better part of a decade, and there really weren't secrets among us. Now, when I was GMing or my other friends were GMing, if people had lines about like siblings or things that we sort of knew where each other's lines were. Yeah. We didn't necessarily need a survey. But if I were going to do it all over again, even though I had played with those people for years, I still would probably use this just to baseline it, right? Just to keep it in perspective. Because, I think as a lot of us has gotten older, like you said, our perspectives have changed and our tastes have changed and our tolerance for some of that stuff has also changed.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a big reason why it's called the RPG consent checklist is you're really giving consent about topics and things that you're willing to talk about or explore in the game. And there are some things you don't give consent to, and that is totally fine. Like, I'd much rather, as I get older, I'm realizing I'd much rather have a way to deal with these before they become a problem than dealing with them after they become a problem. Like,
right.
I still remember, like, that woman sipping away from the table, and she no longer enjoyed the rest of that session. Now, granted, the session was awful. It was a bad adventure. It was like, it was just not good across the board. But she didn't get to participate that because something happened that made her feel uncomfortable. And, if there had been something as simple as an X card, right? She could have simply just like touched the X card. The GM would have got the hint, and he could have changed something on the fly. Or, I mean, like heck, I would have been okay with like, oh crap, I need like 5 minutes to figure this out, and we take a break and then come back. Like, that's fine too. But it's something. The older I get, the more important this stupid stuff is.
Yeah,
it's stupid, but it's not something you think about. Yeah,
it's not stupid at all. It's not stupid at all. Now, okay, if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, so what is this all about? I believe you're going to put a link in the show notes to the actual survey, right?
Yeah, I put a link to. It's a Google Doc that basically, the Google Doc has a link to basically clone the Google form, and it has like a lot of instructions and like why it exists, and some general like acknowledgments and stuff. So yeah, the link's going to be in there. The link is actually going to be to the how to use the digital RPG consent checklist documentation.
Right. Now, I'll be honest. I took the survey, and there was nothing in there that I struck.
Okay.
Now, some of the things on there have like a sliding scale. Of
it's like green, yellow, red. Yeah.
Right. I don't think I marked anything as red. There were a couple that were yellow, but
hey, spoiler alert. I marked a couple things as red.
Well, and if I'm sort of recalling some of the questions, and I could totally see that.
Yeah.
But for me, there was really nothing in there. Well, no, I take that back. There was one thing I marked as red, and you could probably guess what it was.
I personally have two. Me personally, I have two lines. Those two lines are abusive children and abusive pets.
Yeah, abusive pets was my one red line.
Yep, I don't like them.
Yep.
They just like nope. This is not going to be. I'm usually that's something I've been carrying around for I don't know, like probably ever since I had kids. It's like yeah, like when I run a game, it's like no, these two things they're out. And like the abusive pet things becomes difficult because a lot of people like playing playable pets, and then they get into combat, and then we have to like, and usually at that point, like if you have a playable pet, like, and they get into combat and something happens, that becomes like a veil, right? I'm not going to go into big detail about it. If something happens to your pet, I'll give your character a chance to like to
Save
grieve
it.
and mourn, and or to bring the pet back or something, you know. Like, I'm not going to describe in gruesome detail the killing blow that took down your faithful, you know, battle dog. But, like, I'm not going to have a villain who delights in, you know, diddling kids and skinning cats. Like, that's that will never exist in my game.
Yeah, I think the one red line I had was the pets, and I think I did the children at yellow because. Oh God. Okay. Here's one of the ways I'm broken. You ready? So we were playing a Pathfinder campaign one time, where we stumbled across a village that was completely run by children, and they were completely overbearing. Right.
Okay.
The GM completely stole it from Fallout. I think it was. I can't remember if it was New Vegas or I think it was New Vegas. You know what I'm talking about? Little,
they're like living underground.
Yeah, and they have their own democracy, and like in Fallout, where this GM stole it from, you couldn't hurt the kids, no matter how bad you wanted to. In fact, there were mods you could install that would let you hurt those kids because those kids were assholes. Okay, I'm sorry, those kids were assholes.
They were.
We came across in our adventure a similar thing, and it didn't go well.
Did you kind of go murder hobo on?
Well, I just vaguely remember one of our stronger characters, basically dual wielding children to hit the other children.
Oh, I shouldn't be laughing. That's awful.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. But it became funny when it probably shouldn't have been funny.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. You know, and it's perfect. Like. There's nothing wrong with saying like, hey, like that kind of stuff is like, even if you say like green, I perfectly consent to that. It doesn't mean that you agree with it. You're just okay with exploring that or having like your character probably won't do that, but other people might do that in the game. It might be something you see or get exposed to, right? It doesn't mean like, yes, I love this. It just means like, yeah, I don't mind like if this is something we talk about in the game.
Well, see, and I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum either, because this is a fantasy world and people might want to explore those themes. I'll give someone just enough rope to hang themselves. But if someone like busts out a racial slur, even in the context of a character, I'm gonna have a problem with that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's just.
Yeah, I get that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's things that are like. And that's kind of where like veils are, right? It's like maybe it's not okay in the party, but it may be something that happens, you know, by an NPC, but we don't go about it into too much detail. It's just something that happens, or like something like torture. We might reference it like, hey, these people that aren't in the like these people far away got tortured, and like it's not something that we experienced or did, but it happened. It's off screen and it's important. but we're not going to talk about it too much. So I just think having those lines and veils are, they're good. It's a good adult thing to do. And, I mean, like, and this is something new. Like, this didn't exist forever. Like in RPGs, it was just like, I hope I don't offend you, or yeah. Oh, I talked a lot there.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's sort of. First of all, I sort of applaud you for doing it. I think it's a very responsible thing to do. Even if you, like I said, even if you sort of know the players, I still think it's a responsible thing to lay that down ahead of time, because the world we are playing in is a little grittier version of D&D to begin with.
That is absolutely correct.
Right. So I think having that there is good. And if you know where the line kind of is, you can kind of get adjacent to it without crossing it either.
Yeah, it's true. And if that's why I like having the X card as well, is if we, like, I do push something too far and it's not okay, you have a way of telling me. And the nice thing is, like, with the kind of online virtual tabletop that we're playing, if someone touches the X card, nobody knows who that was. It's completely anonymous. Right? And I don't need to know who it was. Like, it doesn't matter to me, right? It could be me. Who cares? Like, who knows? We just know that it was touched and it's something we have to deal with. So I kind of like that anonymity as well. I think, like, that gives, I think, players a little bit more like, it gives them more permission without having to feel bad, right? Like, if something is bothering them and they don't want to go any further, then boom, X card, and then we deal with it. I've used the X card in, this would be my third or fourth game I've used it in, and we've never had to touch it, but we always go through. I always make sure, like in the face-to-face games, that I put them down, usually on the corners of the table in the middle, so people can reach. We never had to use it, but it's a safety net. It's nice to be there. Anywho, enough about tabletop RPG safety.
Okay, but I do want to continue talking about RPG things, because with as busy as I've been, Paul, I have done absolutely no prep for tomorrow.
That's absolutely fine.
Okay.
That's why I'm there.
I know, but I should be more prepared. We have a Discord where you have some important things that I need to, like, take advantage of. I don't have any of the source material.
It's okay.
I still need to get into the campaign website. I need to get into D&D Beyond. I have no idea what kind of character I'm going to be playing.
That's okay. And, like, I mean, I think a couple of people have some ideas, but I really want to make characters together, because I really want to take the time to, like, decide what the party's going to be, what the campaign's going to be about, and then, make characters that fit in with that. And then, maybe they have some sort of relationship together. And I mean, obviously, I have a few of the players have played in a brief Eberron game with me before, so they have a little bit of idea for the setting. But, like, my responsibility is to kind of work with you in your idea to kind of make a character who kind of fits in, maybe give you some ideas about, like, settings in history, or little nuggets about the world that you can accept or not accept. Like, for example, like in my face-to-face game that died because of gestures and everything, I had some players. Some of the players were more excited and read a lot of the book beforehand. Some of them had no idea at all, and one of them really wanted to play an elf. And, for example, like the elves in Eberron, which is this campaign we're playing, there's one group of them. I think they're from Arenal. And so the notion is, like, elves in D&D usually live a very long time. So this particular group of elves, basically, they live so long that they kind of want to avoid death. And their most reverent, like, they're poets and they're leaders and they're, great magicians. They basically keep alive as undead for as long as they can to keep them alive, right? They kind of, like, just that's how they celebrate their ancestors, is by not letting them die. And they have this religion about it called the Undying Court. And like, they're all about, they're not about being individuals. They're all about like, hey, like 800 years ago, we mastered sword fighting. And if you bring anything new to the table on sword fighting, we don't want to hear it. We want you to emulate these moves of our greatest sword fighter. And it may take you 600 years to master it, but that's okay. And when I kind of offered that to him, he was like, yeah, that sounds absolutely amazing. So, you know, he got to play the character he wanted, and I got to bring in a little bit of the setting and the campaign stuff to get him excited and kind of bring him into the bigger world. Yeah, don't worry about it. You know, there is like an introduction to Eberron doc out there. If you have any time at all, that's what I would say you would read. It's like 5 pages. If not, that's absolutely fine. We'll deal with it when we get there.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yep.
I'm in for all of this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in for all of this. Yeah, I mean, I definitely threw some ideas at you last time. I still have a couple more.
Okay.
I like playing characters that have, I don't know if gimmick's the right word, but because like my last character was extremely ambivalent. Like just they could not be bothered to do anything. Except when it really truly mattered, and even then, he was like at about 60 to 65% effort. Like it was, and I know it really irritated the party, but it was fun. It was fun. It was fun for Daddy. It was fun. Daddy.
Yep. But like, you weren't so bad that you didn't like. You weren't like, no, I'm just gonna sit in this tavern and, you know, drink, and you guys can go off and, you know, storm the castle. You went along, but it was like, oh, like, are we really doing like this right now? This is the decisions everyone else is going to be making. I will have no.
Oh my god! I have a character idea for you. I'm gonna tell you what it is off the air.
Okay.
I just had the best idea. Oh my god! It just came to me. It just came to me. All right, let's wrap this one up so we can talk about it.
Absolutely. You can find us on the internet at doingtheirbest.com or on Twitter at doingbestpod. You can find me, Paul Baylor, on Twitter at Paul Baylor. That's Bahler. And where can we find you, Drew?
I'm on Twitter at Pittsburgh, PITTFURG.
And I don't know, like I keep waiting for you to stream something on Twitch.
No, so. Well, I just haven't had time. That's like the worst. Like I'm the worst. I'm the absolute worst.
Hey, you know, entertain me, Drew. Entertain me.
Okay, well, you get what you pay for.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right, bye.